Hello, and welcome back to Sacred by Design, Interior Design with Laureen Youngblood. I'm Laureen. Happy 2025. We're starting a new year, and I'd like to start a new series addressing costs again. It's a very important concern and aspect of any type of remodel or custom home. And again, for those of you that are new to my YouTube videos, most of what I address has to do with remodels. However, they can also be applied to custom homes. The difference being remodels are a little more complicated in how we address existing conditions and how those existing conditions affect the new design layout and options that we want to address coming up. Whereas with a custom home, you're starting from scratch and you get to make it however you want. And so some of these things will affect custom homes, and some of them will be specific to remodels, just so that you know. Today, we're going to talk about electrical. I've talked about construction costs in past videos. However, I thought we would address some specific challenges and concerns when it comes to each individual subset in a kitchen design or bathroom design, whole house design, remodel, or custom home. So let's start with the number of fixtures. The first thing that's going to happen in cost is your electrician's going to count the number of fixtures they have to replace. Again, obviously that's for remodel specifically. And that's going to be your lowest cost item. You have control over the cost of the fixtures, and the electrician is just swapping it out. As long as it's the same type of fixture. It's a ceiling fixture, you're putting in a new ceiling fixture. It's a wall sconce, you're putting in a new wall sconce. Or updating or upgrading an existing recessed can. So those costs are going to be fairly fixed and your least expensive consideration in this part of the project. So if that is where you want to save money, then you want to make sure that you're sticking with that. As soon as you start adding fixtures or relocating fixtures is when we start to exponentially increase the cost of an electrical contractor. Now, what this is going to look like is, first off, are we adding fixtures? So your recessed cans, most days now we're doing the LED wafers, which are great for remodels because they're very low profile and fairly cost effective as far as how much it costs per recessed can or wafer. And that's what they call them, LED wafers. At least that's what they call them here. Now, I can't get into exact cost. That is specifically because every area and every city is going to have their own concerns. Electricians here in Oregon are going to charge differently than an electrician in Texas or New York City or Miami or Montana. So exact costs are not going to be something that I'm going to be able to help you with. What I am here to do is talk to you about how you might exponentially increase the cost or decrease your cost depending on what your ultimate goal is. So task lighting in a kitchen and bathroom are going to be your number one priorities. So if that's where you need to focus your budget, then focus on those recessed wafer LED can lights. And where you want them stationed is over your work areas, over your sink. Your cooktop and range should have built-in lighting over the top of them, but to have another light above, especially for those of us over the age of 50, is going to be super helpful in your kitchen. Making them dimmable is an added expense, but exponentially not as much as adding the fixtures themselves. So they're going to give you a cost per fixture, hopefully. And what's going to affect that cost is a couple of things. When you're talking ceiling light. Now, for the wafers, it's typically fairly simple of cutting into the drywall. It doesn't have to be cut so much that you would have to affect drywall patching or repair or new paint unless you're already planning on doing that. and they should be able to insert those fairly simply. The wiring is where it starts to get complicated. Now, if you are in a vaulted ceiling application, or your ceiling and roof have very minimal space, that means the electrician is not going to be able to climb up into your attic and drop the electrical lines to each fixture. So you want to make sure you're keeping that in mind when you are talking to your electrician, finding out how they're going to access to install any fixtures of any kind. As soon as you have to start cutting lines across drywall, now we're talking about drywall repair and new paint on the entire ceiling. And this isn't necessarily just in the area itself. You have to look at where your walls and your ceilings meet and where there's a cutoff line, a natural cutoff line that they can stop painting without it looking weird from room to room. All of those things are going to affect your additional cost in electrical. The other thing that's going to affect your cost is the age of the home. Anything newer than 1980s, 1990s, at that point, most of the wiring should be fairly new enough that you shouldn't be looking at too much additional cost to update. Once you get further back than that, things start to get a little bit trickier. Once you get before 1960 or 1950, all bets are off. I don't know how many times I've received a bid from an electrician. They open up a wall or a ceiling and they have to start all over. And so you want to be really careful with that and talk extensively with your electrician about how that might affect cost if they break open a wall to put in a fixture you've requested and they run into something that they weren't expecting. Suddenly there's knob and tube wiring, or the wiring is so outdated it can't handle the load of the newer electrical fixtures. Or maybe they get in there and the wiring is eroded for whatever reason, whether that's rodents or weather exposure, depending on, there's all kinds of things in remodels that can affect that. So keep that in mind. Now, next is going to be additional either track lighting or ceiling lights. Again, this is going to be about how the wiring gets to the location of the new fixture as to how that affects your cost. So just be aware that for each additional fixture, whether it's a wafer can or a ceiling fixture or a wall sconce, under cabinet lighting, the nice thing about under cabinet lighting, if you're doing a complete gut of your kitchen, or it's a new kitchen, right? Well, wiring doesn't, rough electrical in a new home is a completely different thing because everything gets set up before the drywall goes on. But in a remodel, when you are replacing your cabinetry, the nice thing about wired in under cabinet lighting is that they can do it all behind where the cabinets are going to go, so you're less concerned with drywall repair or painting at that point, which reduces your overall costs. So the thing to remember with electrical cost is to take a look of your existing conditions, talk extensively with your contractor and your electrician about, are they going to have to cut extra holes in the drywall? Are you already prepared to do a major patch or replace of drywall? Is that already in your budget? Are you already prepared to do a completely new paint job? If those things are already in your budget, those costs won't change. However, if you were not planning on doing any kind of major drywall patching or repairing, adding or moving light fixtures can change that, and you need to know how that affects your overall costs. So the other things that will affect adding dimmer switches, your more expensive outlets are going to be outlets with the newer ones, the USB portals. Those are more expensive. There's, all the new doodads in electrical that can add cost to each outlet or each fixture, depending on how you're wiring it. So make sure that you're going over those details specifically, again, with your contractor and your electrician. The other thing to think about is your appliances. Now, a refrigerator takes a fairly standard plug, so relocating the refrigerator for electrical costs. Relocating a refrigerator from one side of the room to the other, as long as there's a plug available, should not add too much. The nice thing is they can move a plug up and down a wall if it's already there, and that typically, again, doesn't cost too much money. It will affect your drywall, so be aware of that. However, if you are relocating a microwave or adding a microwave, relocating a range or adding an additional oven of any kind, convection oven, regular oven, any of those things, those take additional electrical. So they need a higher amperage, which means for a full-size range, they have to put a 220 outlet at the new location. That's a completely different set of wiring. Be aware that will add some cost to your electrical. Also, the microwave takes its own breaker, typically, or very, very limited additional electrical on that breaker. So those things need to be checked. Then now you're just talking about either adding breakers to your panel if it's big enough, or swapping out a panel entirely. So make sure that you are aware of all of those things when you're talking to your contractor and electrician during the bidding process. Don't wait until you're already into the remodel. Please, please talk to your contractor and your electrician during the bidding process. You've gotten to the point now where you're getting serious, you're ready to move forward, and you need to know exact costs, and they will get you as close as possible. So those are the things that you need to make sure you've counted. We know for sure we want 6 cans. We know for sure we're going to relocate 2 ceiling fixtures. We're going to add an additional ceiling fixture. We're adding four outlets. We are relocating a range. We are adding a microwave or relocating the microwave and the convection oven if you're doing wall ovens or anything like that, double ovens. Make sure that that's all accounted for and very, very clearly delineated in your contract and the bid for your electrical. You don't want any surprises down the road. This is really important. The more vague your contract is, the more vague in this case, your electrical bid or description of the electrical work to be performed, the more vague it is, the less detail there is in there, the more chance you have of getting hit with large change orders for something that the electrician or the contractor says that they didn't know was going to happen, they didn't see. Just be really, really clear in all of those things. You want as much detail as possible. I hope this was helpful for you. Again, keeping it as it is and swapping light fixtures, fairly simple. Swapping out your plate covers, fairly simple. That's going to be your most minimal cost in electrical. As soon as you start relocating and adding fixtures, you exponentially increase the cost, and it affects other items in your remodel. It affects your drywall, it affects your paint, it can affect your cabinetry, it can affect all kinds of things. So make sure everybody's on the same page. And again, then the next step up after that is if you're relocating your large appliances, stoves, ovens, microwaves that take a larger electrical draw. Relocating those can add either to your panel with breakers, changing out a panel, or just the rewiring for the larger electrical load. I hope this was helpful and not too long and boring. Happy 2025. Thank you very much for coming back to see me this year. And I look forward to our next video where we're going to talk about plumbing costs. So again, today, how much does it cost? It's dependent on you and how much you want to add or leave the same in your project. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.